Is there a perception you share, or does corporate India have this strong and looming fear that if there is some kind of a hung parliament that's thrown up in May, that would really impact how fast the Indian economy is able to grow from here?
I'm sure, if you look at any time in the past, the industry houses do adjust itself to the changing events. Yes, for debate, one may always say that, what happens if there is a change, what will be the next growth story, etc., etc. But I think all our strategies do suggest that you need to have an option 1 and 2 very clearly. Right. So I think.
So what's your option 1? What's your option 2?
I think be ready for any situation and do your best. I think these are business models. I think you have to understand your consumer better, create product and services that suits the consumer, and then I think the businesses do well. Mr.
Tanti, do you also have option 1, option 2? Is option 2 a nightmare in some senses, a motley group of different alliances, or you think it doesn't really matter?
No, I have a little bit different the view is there. Business run on a long-term strategy. It cannot possible by one event you can change. You can fine-tune, not much more, because it's a longer. So the strategy of the long-term capex investment in our industry is a very high capex industries. It's required a 5 years plan. And based on that we have to, but yes, we have to keep in a watch whatever the current the policy regime is there, regulatory framework in the energy sector is there, how the government can reshape if there is any change is coming on the situation. So we have to take consideration in our risk assessment and plan another area. But I am quite confident, I think government will continue. And I don't see that much impact on our.
So you're voting for a Modi re-election?
Yeah, I am. Sure, no doubt about that, because the renewable sector earlier target was 30 gigawatt, and now after this government has changed the target of 175 gigawatt.
Okay.
And truly, really sustainable economy and energy securities we are bringing.
Mr. Badal, you're Finance Minister Punjab. You're also a Congress leader now. There are 2 theories we've seen. One is option 1, option 2. The other is, the fact is, and Mr. Tanti is voicing it, but a lot of corporates would like to see the Modi Sarkar come back to power. They are concerned that if it's Congress with a whole bunch of alliance partners, there'll be chaos. You don't know who's in charge. There'll be all kinds of wheeling and dealing, and that's not good for the India story.
Well, Rahul, for a start, I don't think so. I'm here, in Switzerland, standing here, wanting to discuss India's domestic politics.
Sure.
I think, frankly, you must give the Indian voter the kind of respect, because he's never made a wrong choice. There is an acute amount of embarrassment, and I'm cutting across party lines by saying that, of course, India could have done better, much better. There is a lot of headroom for improvement. So I wouldn't really go on this that if there is a coalition, and if you see the history of India, a lot of good work has happened during coalition governments. And so actually just leave it to the Indian voter, let him decide and respect the verdict. And I'm positive about India.
Mr. Ojha, is a coalition fractured mandate a worse nightmare for India Inc. and for global corporations, or does it really not matter? It's business as usual regardless of who wins?
I think the fact of the matter is the latter. It is going to be business as usual. And yes, political leadership and the executive does matter. But I don't see that as being the rate constraining factor over the next decade. The rate constraining factor is really about, whosoever is in power. Can we get our citizens the right amount of employment? Can we make sure that the next generation of people who are entering the workforce have both quality and quantity of jobs that are required? And I'm quite hopeful that whichever government is in power is going to be seized with this and is going to take the steps that are required.
Mr. Tanti, you rooted quite strongly for the BJP and for the Prime Minister to be re-elected. The fact is, a lot of corporate leaders may not say this so much on a live camera here in Davos, but they are pretty disappointed with the fact that the Prime Minister has not moved on economic reform with the kind of aggression he promised when he was in opposition. Things like candidate Modi saying the government has no business to be in business is not what he did. Now, from a renewable energy sector, he's been like Santa Claus. Of course, you love him, Suzlon loves him, but that's not necessarily the case for the rest of corporate India as well. And while they may not voice it so much on open camera, once the camera's lights are turned off, they're not necessarily very happy and not rooting quite the way that you are.
No, it's we have to understand the the growth of the economy opportunity versus the global windows. Within that, the government role is extremely important. How and what way they shape the economy and supporting on the policy and regulatory. They are not the executive. Real business is executed by the industries. When I see the transformation in the last 4 to 5 years, the majority, the leadership has a majority in the government. I think that's give the lots of freedom to change a lot of areas. So the transformation systems has established and processes established and new initiatives have taken. Now real phase of the fruits will start in the next 5 years.
Mr. Iyer, this is what Finance Minister Jaitley also says, that we've laid the building blocks which will lead to greater returns in time to come. That, you may not see the returns immediately, but the returns will be visible in some time from now. Do you agree with that assessment? That a lot of the moves like the insolvency code, etc., are the building blocks that have been put in place. The results will be seen, the fruits will be had in some time from now.
I'm sure any kind of an action that's put to place now will start kind of producing results over a period of time. Too early to say why not today and why not tomorrow. But I think as far as we're concerned, I very strongly think as a financial services institution, we are looking at financial inclusion. It doesn't matter, who is the government. Ultimately, the consumers have to be benefited.
On financial inclusion, how many marks do you give the Modi Sarkar? How satisfied are you with the effort they've made? Because there are two theories. One is that they've opened more accounts and really pushed harder on financial inclusion than ever before. The other is that you opened a lot of accounts, a large percentage of which don't have any amounts, and therefore, it's just an account in name only.
I think more than that, I would look at how technology is penetrated deeper, and that's kind of broad-basing the consumers to participate, and that's giving the transactional comfort for a financial institution to also reach that deeper. Okay. Like today, we have our consumers in 360,000 villages, and we feel it comfortable in the sense that we are able to reach them, at least communicate to them through technology, while the business model may still be physical.
Mr. Badal, what's the Punjab angle here in Davos? You're trying to say look beyond food grains, but what does Punjab offer beyond food grains? A lot of the industrial towns of Punjab now are way past their prime. They're not quite as robust as they used to be. So as Finance Minister, what's your bid here in Davos? What are you telling the world?
Well, Rahul, I don't know, many people would not know it, but in the entire history of Punjab, we have never had an industrial lockout. There's never been an industrial strike.
Despite the communists being quite strong?
In Punjab, there is no labor problem. And the productivity of Punjabi labor, and you'll have to, and I'm not saying it because I'm the finance minister, there are many German companies here, and they will actually, say what I'm saying, that the productivity of a Punjabi labor is as good as a German labor. There's Glass Combines, there's Goetz, there are many German companies. Labor is fantastic. A lot of people during, when there was political turbulence, there was some incentive given to our immediate neighbors, the hill states. They were made special category states and they were given, excise concessions and so on and so forth. They're all moving back because of labor problem. So Punjabi labor, it's actually the character of the people. So Punjab actually is one of the finest places one could do business in terms of ease of doing business. Our power rates are probably the lowest in the country. And basically, Rahul, Punjab is desperate. The hunger to succeed is much more than any other state.
Is that also because of all the farm loan waivers that you've done? You have no money and therefore you're desperate.
No. Why we are desperate is that with the coming in of the GST, 40% of our entire revenue base, tax base, which used to be taxing food grains, has been subsumed. At the moment, we are in a compensation regime, but this window is going to close very quickly in 3.5 years. So Punjab has to diversify. Punjab has to succeed. So the option of failure is not open to Punjab. And that's the reason why I'm here.
Finally, Mr. Jhakar, will farmers across rural India, in your view, back the Prime Minister and the BJP in his bid for re-election, or do you believe agrarian distress is for real? And like we saw in the Hindi heartland, a large majority of the farmers are likely to vote against the BJP. What's your view?
I think farmers are in distress across the country, and they've been in distress before Mr. Modi came. It's just that their distress has been aggravated because of government policies and bad governance, and that's a fact, and farmers will react to that completely. But then earlier question that you were asking the other panelists is, does government change make a difference? And I agree with some panelists who said it does not make a difference, because I think so both the political parties do not have an economic agenda which is different from each other, except naming schemes differently and except giving election slogans which are never met. So at the end of the day, nothing is going to change. Farmer distress is something that farmers will have to fight against, whichever party is in power.
Okay, so I want to thank all of you. You know, it's freezing cold and I don't want to keep you out in the cold any longer. But this has been an interesting discussion on economy, on finance, and also on the budget, and then a little bit of politics thrown in as well. You had some interesting answers. Thank you so much for joining us here